What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today, what I wanted to do is talk about who I would call the three most important under the radar jumps for the New York Jets here in 2025. We keep on talking about guys like Justin Fields who were brought in. We know about the studs like Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and some of those key players. But one of the things we have been continuing to talk about with this new regime under Darren Moji and Aaron Glenn are the coaching, the development that is going to happen. We talked about how the priority in free agency was bringing in young guys, right? Guys that had splashed on tape, guys that were still in their mid-20s, guys that were former top-round draft picks. And to be quite honest, there are people on the Jets roster already who fit that bill, who might be able to take another leap with some of the coaching that we are talked about. I mentioned that kind of Jets offseason show on YouTube, and one of the things Aaron Glenn really talked about was that all the coaches he was hiring were teachers, were developers, some of the coaching benefits of getting young talent and having them grow together. And there are three guys specifically I want to target who were, like in free agency, top 3-round draft picks, who have flashed on some level that maybe if they took the next step, it could be incredibly beneficial for the Jets moving forward. And here are my top 3 guys who fit that scenario. The first is Germaine Johnson, the pass rusher who was a first-round pick a few years ago, is coming back. We extended him, picked up the extension there for year 5 in that draft. And Germaine Johnson, remember, he tore his Achilles last year, only played in like a game or two. But in 2023 as a full-time starter, he had 7.5 sacks. He had a 13% pressure rate, right? He had a PFF grade, which is in the top 20 among edge rushers. He's also well-rounded, okay? Look, he was only one of 5 edge rushers in the NFL last year with 45 or more pressures, 15 run stops, 10 tackles for loss, and 5 passes deflected. Right? I think that's interesting. He's also a very sure tackler. He has some stats that are so well-rounded that he was in a group with only Khalil Mack and TJ Watt, for goodness sakes, right? And I keep on talking about how we have a good young offensive line. If you pair an ascending Germaine Johnson with Will McDonald, who last year had 10.5 sacks, you may have not only one of the best young offensive lines in the NFL, you may have one of the best young pass rushing duos in the NFL. I think there's a real chance where Germaine Johnson on one side and Will McDonald on the other can both get double-digit sacks. And you see this last year, there was only like 5 teams that were able to do that. I think Germaine Johnson is key. People forget about how good Germaine Johnson was and was becoming. The talent is there. The pedigree is there. He has flashed on tape, and if he takes another step forward with some of the coaching and the development that Aaron Glenn preaches, watch out for the pressure we are going to be able to put on quarterbacks. And I keep on saying, with the press man coverage, the ability to get pressure without having to blitz is going to be something huge for this Wilkes defense here. So if Germaine Johnson and Will McDonald can do it, that could be a huge step forward. Another guy I want to talk about is last year's first-round pick. We all talk about how we got Armand Membu this year, and he's going to be a bookend tackle. Well, the other bookend tackle is Olufashino, who was our first-round draft pick last year, who we took instead of getting a guy like Brock Bowers, right? First of all, he's only 22 years old. And what if he continues to take a step forward, right? We're talking about this good young offensive line. He's only 22. And listen, he didn't play much. He didn't play too well at the beginning of the season. You see this, right? Overall, he was 41st among tackles as per PFF, but he did only allow 1 sack all season. He did only allow 4 quarterback hits, only 20 or so pressures, but he was really good in the second half of the season. In the last 6 games, he had a 74.7 pass blocking grade for PFF. That was inside the top 30 among tackles. The pressure rate that he allowed went down from 9.2% all the way down to 5.7%. He had a great game week 15 against Jacksonville, against the likes of Josh Allen, and the first overall pick that Jacksonville had a couple of years ago, Walker, right? So some good young edge rushers, and he had a PFF grade of 85.6, allowing only 1 pressure in that game. So for me, this is also really important because he is If anything, he is the greatest unknown on this offensive line, right? I talk about how Tippmann, Simpson, and AVT all last year graded inside the top 10 in their position, and the interior line is strong already for the Jets. We talk about Armand Membu and how most people believe he is going to be a stud tackle for years to come. If there is any unknown on the offensive line, I think it's Olufashino, just because we haven't seen him as much, but he has the first round talent. He did show that in the second half of the season that he was able to be good. Remember, he didn't allow a single sack his entire college career over at Penn State, right? Similar to some of the things we are hearing about Armand Membu. So if those two guys, if Olufashino really does develop into what we expect, that is what really can complete this offensive line into a true wall for Justin Fields, into maulers in the run game for Breece Hall. And Fashanu is another guy who I think under the radar, if he takes a step forward and realizes more of the potential that people thought he was going to be with the 10th or 11th overall pick just a year ago, watch out for what this offensive line can do. The third under the radar Jet who could take a step forward in a new regime with the quote unquote coaching and development, in my opinion, is Malachi Corley. Malachi Corley was a third round pick last year in 2024. And if you remember this, going into the draft last year, he was known as the quote unquote Yak King, right? I'm going to say this. He didn't get on the field a ton last year. I actually say that had a lot to do with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, as a veteran quarterback, quite frankly, just didn't have time to kind of work in a rookie wide receiver. There's a lot of reports out there about how Rodgers didn't like some of the rookies, didn't like kind of bringing in and try to worry about some of the new guys. Remember, he already had his bromance with Devontae Adams. He already had his boy Alan Lazard, right? Obviously, Garrett Wilson. So there wasn't time for Malachi Corley to really develop, but Malachi Corley, you may have seen, changed his number. He is now wearing number 6 this year, and I think it is good for him to have a fresh start. Like last year, only had 3 catches for 16 yards, okay? Ran the ball twice, 26 yards. And you can say that in one way, like, he didn't get on the field. Why are we even talking about Malachi Corley? The other way you can say is that out of the 5 times he touched the ball, he went for 10 plus yards 2 of those times. He averaged 8.4 yards a touch. And remember, he was known as the Yak King. Listen to some of these numbers, okay? In 3 years at Western Kentucky, 253 catches for almost 3,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, almost 12 yards per catch, and most of them were yak. When we talk about Yak King, we talk about yards after the catch. This guy was impossible to tackle. He had 9.7 yards of yards after catch, as each reception in 2022 back in college. His 975 yards after the catch and 40 missed tackles led all of college football in that year. He was brought in. They were making comps to a guy like Deebo Samuel, right? A guy that is impossible to bring down, a guy that you can use in a lot of different ways. And that's the last part I want to talk about this. It goes back to what I keep saying about this new regime, the intentionality of Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, and the vision they have for different people. On the defensive side, we talked about it yesterday, kind of blitzing from everywhere. Guys that could play safety and nickel, come down and be a little bit of a linebacker as well. Even a guy like Brandon Stevens who could play from corner over to safety. Some of the kind of multiple angles and ways we can bring pressure. In the offensive side of the ball, I really think Malachi Corley kind of helps complete the wide receiver group. We have a lot of different skill sets at wide receiver. Now, Garrett Wilson is an alpha, number one, true, number one outside the numbers wide receiver. If you look at a guy like Arian Smith, what he does is bring that unquestioned sub 4.3 speed to go over the top. We talk about the sure-handed guys like a Josh Reynolds, like a Mason Taylor at the tight end position, right? The other kind of weapon that we need, that we in fact have with a guy like Malachi Corley, is this Yak King kind of guy. A guy that you can get the ball on quick slants. A guy you can get the ball to in bubble screens. A guy you can get the ball, you see in the NFL right now, how they run the wide receiver in motion and do those little pop passes, the end arounds. That is the way Malachi Corley is designed to be used. So in this wide receiver room, I know a lot of people are talking about signing Amari Cooper, that we need kind of another true wide receiver too. I don't think we do. I think we have the elements, the characteristics, when you put it all together, to have what we need opposite Garrett Wilson. You got the speed guy in Smith. You got the hands guy in Reynolds. You got the blocking guy in Lazard. You have the yak guy, the bubble screen guy in Corley. You have the tight end that you need to be an additive in the pass game in Mason Taylor, right? And then you even got a guy like Tyler Johnson who can kind of do it all and has that experience and is ascending as well. I think if Malachi Corley realizes some of the potential that he didn't have a chance to last year because he was kind of blocked and uninterested in being used by Aaron Rodgers, he could truly be a nice additive piece to this wide receiver group and ultimately this Jets offense underneath Justin Fields. So there you have it. Germaine Johnson returning to add to the pass rush. Olu Fashanu to continue to solidify the offensive line, and then a weapon in Malachi Corley are three Jets who are already on the roster, where if they take advantage of some of the coaching and development that this new regime is trying to predicate and pride themselves on, could be huge factors for the 2025 Jets. That'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. Please watch these videos, like these videos, smash the like button, subscribe, and tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend, because 2025 is the start of a new era, and you want to get in on the ground floor right here with Jets Latest. We will be giving you content every single day, looking at the roster, looking at what happened in minicamp, and trying to figure out what is going to be going on with the green and white this year. And if you want to hear more from me, the spitting statistician Dane Martinez, I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on SiriusXM channel 87. That is the fantasy channel. So more than just the Jets, if you want to play fantasy football, fantasy baseball, but it's more than just that. FTN Fantasy is a great website with a lot of tools and data to help you not only be a better fantasy player, but be a better sports bettor. Okay, we give you the edge on all sorts of games and props. If you want to win some of that cash, go on over to FTN Fantasy. But we will be back next week to talk about what happened in mini camps and continue to look forward to what will be an exciting season for the green and white. Like, subscribe, and tell a Jets fan friend. We'll see you next week. This is the end of the latest edition of Jets Latest. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you then. We out of here. Peace.